On.
I better push my button. Alrighty, welcome everybody. Lovely to have some visitors in the public forum, so hi. So we'll get underway with a karakia timatanga. So mā te whakapono, mā te tūmanako, mā te te tiro, mā te whakarongo, mā te mahitahi, mā te whakamomori, mā te aroha, ka taia e mātou. And that translated is by believing and trusting, by having faith and hope, by looking and searching, by listening and hearing, by working and striving together, by sheer desire and determination, by all being done with compassion, we will succeed. Okay, so we'll get underway. I'll just get my great big sheet here in front of me. So welcome, lovely to have everyone here. We will kick off with item 1, which is apologies. So I'm pretty sure it's just Lou. So I'll move that the apologies for non-attendance from Councillor Brown be received. Could I have someone to second that? Bruce, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And I've got to remember Jill's up there. Hi, Jill, otherwise I'll forget you. Okay. Item 2, disclosures of members' interests. Seeing we have the discretionary fund to discuss this evening, there may be a few extras. So, John?
Just the alpha. Not
Okay.
that I haven't been done any work there for a while, but I'll just stand aside for that one for now.
Okay.
Then I do report occasionally on it.
Yep. Anyone else?
My wife's involved with
Okay.
support person there, so.
Yep. Health shuttle for Bruce. Sally or Kane, have you guys got any? I don't think I have. Jill, did you have any conflicts or for anything else in our meeting tonight? No? Okay, so we've got those. Okay, well then we can move on to item 3, which is our public forum, which is on page 8 of our agenda. So we've got our order, but we're going to have a little wiggle around because a couple of people aren't here. So Bill's not here. Neil said he will be late. So we'll start with, do you want to start with Fran and Ken?
And then we can print those and hand them out.
Oh, okay, because Dave's got some things to print. Okay, cool. So we're going to go backwards. So Fran and Ken, if you would like to jump in the seats up the top, the little microphone, you just push the button and when it comes green, you're good to go. So Fran Jones and Ken Huberts are from the Awamutu Chamber and they're here tonight to talk to the discretionary fund in regard to their beautiful Christmas trees. So welcome guys and thanks for giving us some time to explain what you're up to and how it went last year, hopefully.
Kia ora koutou, thank you for having us this evening. My name is Fran Jones, I work for the Te Awamutu Business Chamber. I am speaking on behalf of Shane Walsh, our CEO, who is currently overseas and is unable to make it this evening. With me I have Ken Huberts, who is the project lead of our Christmas tree project, and he will be delivering a short presentation after I finish speaking. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board for their time this evening and hearing our application in person about our Christmas tree project that we are seeking funding for. Last year, the Te Awamutu Business Chamber were the underwriters of a community-wide project called the Wooden Christmas Tree Project. And I'm sure most of you would have noticed the main street lined with brightly decorated Christmas trees that were made by our local school children. The aim of the project was to bring Christmas cheer and vibrancy into the main street of our town, to get a number of community groups participating in the project, such as schools, men's shed and corrections, to get our local retailers to adopt one of these wonderful trees and display them in front of their stores, and of course, attract the customers into Te Awamutu to shop. All of these projects aims feed into the Chamber's ethos of support local. We want Te Awamutu to be vibrant and we want people to shop, eat and play here. Last year's project delivered. As predicted, kids encouraged their friends and whānau to come into town to check out the trees that they were very, very proud of. It brought visitors into town and increased foot traffic into our stores. The Te Awamutu Business Chamber were the underwriters last year, but this year we are looking to be 100% funded by local grants and sponsorship, hence our application to the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board. And just of today, we received a notification that our application for the Creative Communities New Zealand grant has been approved for $500. I'll hand you over to Ken.
Okay. Thank you, Fran. Thank you for the opportunity again to speak. It's the first time here in Te Awamutu. I'll just give a bit of background. I'm new to Te Awamutu. I've been here less than a year, but I come from Gisborne, sunny Gisborne, and I think it's quite appropriate. I have a Purakawa tree sitting over there. I thought I'd keep one as a sample, but that's fair. I've done a wooden Christmas tree for 10 years now in Gisborne, and in fact, they've asked me to do it again this year. And it comes from a project that I did when I was Heart of Gisborne City Manager. That's an organisation targeted with vibrancy in the CBD. So as manager, I tried to think of ways of bringing people to town, and this was so now it's been happening for 10 years, and in fact, they've asked me to do it again this year. So I'll be going back over to Gisborne to do it. So I've got a few photos there. It's just obviously myself. You can see that. Again, the brief is pretty simple, really. It's just to try and bring vibrancy and shoppers to the CBD. It's a pretty blunt thing. When it started, it was just that, but it's morphed into a lot more than that over time. These are the trees that we did here in Te Awamutu. There were 30 of them altogether. But it has a bit of a journey as it goes through. So the men's shed were heavily involved this year with the cutting and preparation of the trees. They took on the project as a job for them. We gave them some money to cover their costs because it does cost to cut these things out. But they had a great time and they got stuck into it, and they worked beside me to get it all done. The next part is I'm racing through this. I know I've only got a limited time, so please bear with me if I'm going too fast. Stop me if you've got questions. Corrections are a really good part of it. They're clients, as I refer to them. These are the ones that the judge has given some community time to. In Gisborne, again, I've been working with them for many, many years. They prime the wooden trees. Okay, so I explained to them what the journey is. It's just not painting a piece of wood. It is a tree that is going to be there in the street. And now this year they've seen the result of it. They've been very proud of it. Corrections loved it. They've already said, look, you want to be in again next year? They said yes. So that's really good. They're spread everywhere because there's lots of parts. The trees are cut into quarters. So they took over the whole yard there, but they had a great time. And so they're very pleased with the outcome of that. The trees are then packed up and sent off to school. So we drive, there's 242 Ks I did last year, travelling to 17 schools. And then after they're decorated, we bring them all back into a central location. You'll recognise that as the Hobbs shed, which is currently being leased. And it's really useful for me strategically because it's actually smack bang in the middle of town, so it's easy to distribute. The love that the students have for their trees is huge, and they really, really want to know who's looking after it in town. And here's one of the schools saying goodbye to their tree, if you can believe that. So this is, honestly, this is not staged. This is them saying goodbye to their tree, right? And then, as I said, when I put it in the back of the truck, they want to know where it is. And, of course, I don't tell them immediately because it's a mystery hunt, right? They're in Alexandra Street. So all I do is I list the businesses that have got it, go find it. And, again, they go and do that. They walk in length and breadth of the street, which is exactly what it's designed to do. So we then deliver them to the shops. We put wheels on them for manoeuvrability and just make sure the decorations are on there. Some of the decorations need a bit of help staying on there. They're not glued on the best. Some use liquid nails, which doesn't move, and some just use glue guns and stuff, so we have to do a lot of repairs. Anyway, the loop that we have is that the tree has a sign on it, which explains the school and also supports the sponsors. But the kicker here is the photo of the kids. So what we ask is that the school produces a photo with the tree, and that's put on there. So the shopkeepers know who owns the tree, and vice versa when I send it to the schools, because I don't send them one photo, I send them 30 photos. They've got to figure out where it is. The photo is strategic, so it doesn't say the shop name, but it sort of gives them a bit of a clue. So they've got to go and find it. We had some publicity last year, thanks to the Te Awamutu News. So it just gives a bit of a heads up for that. We distributed 30 trees to 17 schools, 21 businesses participated. And as you'll see from the list, it's quite a wide variety of schools participated. And basically most in the survey I've said are all back in again this year. So should we do it? I guess like any promotion, I like to get feedback and do some surveys. I'm really keen on making sure that what I do is right, and if there are areas that can be improved, what are they? So I did 2 surveys, one of the businesses that were involved and then one of the schools were involved. So, so this is a question I asked, did they see activity around the trees? And a lot of people said yes. In fact, 95%. Would you like a tree next year? 41 said yes, 53 maybe, but nobody said no to me. You know, so maybe some of the businesses are corporate, so they can't say yes because they haven't asked head office. So therefore, it is a maybe, not a yes, right? I went to great lengths to explain to corporates that the promotion is on the footpath, it's not in store. So the likes of Westpac participated here, but some of the chain stores said they couldn't because head office wouldn't allow them. But it's not in the store, it's on the footpath, which is council property, you know, so it's just trying to get the head around that. If Westpac can do it, anybody can do it. Just, you can read for yourself what that says, but basically I didn't get any negative feedback from that. This is a real, to me, a high value comment. They took the photo outside and they went in the shop and they bought something. I mean, that ticks all the boxes. That's exactly what it's designed for. They came to town, they looked, they purchased, they went home. The schools, 93% said yes, 7% said maybe. I don't know about you, but that's a pretty good, it's only one that said no. That said maybe. Again, nobody said no. What do they think of the promotion? Again, it speaks for itself. These are all unsolicited comments, apart from the fact I said, tell me what you think. And again, you can read that and see. It's a community-focused project. They're excited to be part of it. Resene also came on board with paint. The Resene last year, and in Gisborne every year since, every tree gets 8 test pots for free, right? Every tree, not every school, every tree, right? It's huge. So they really have valued the project. So that support is huge. And their corrections, the painting them, you know, the support there and stuff like that. So that's really everybody being involved. The cost to the schools is nothing because we want it to go to the schools for nothing. So the cost is at the front end really. But anyway, I digress a little with that. This comes from Scott Wilson. So I don't see a lot of, you know, they're really keen. And the phone conversations I've had with all the school principals so far is that, look, you know, we're in, you know, so it's easy. And some of the sponsors, yeah, council have helped us with permission to have the trees on the footpath, which is pretty fundamental. It helps. Otherwise I've got to hang them from a skyhook. The trees will be recycled again this year. This is the first year I've been able to recycle them. So thanks to Jared from GBT Design, he helped us redesign the tree to make it more efficient to make. So our timber costs are 30% less than what they were the year before, in Gisborne anyway. We've done experimentation with the men shed to resurface the trees. And we think we'll probably have an 80% success rate with reusing the timber again. There is a cost involved with that, but I like the idea of recycling. So that's really, I'm real positive. The wheels we reuse, so anything that we can, we reuse. So that's really cool. So that's the project. So
Cool.
Any questions?
Thanks, Ken. So have any of the team, I mean, that's pretty thorough. I don't think there probably is too many, but has anyone got any questions or Jill? Comments?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Jill?
Yeah. No, thank you, Ken. That was great. And it is, I read in our minutes all of the positive comments and they did look fantastic. My question is, 30 was great. And, you know, if they're stripped down, they can be, like you said, 80% of them used again. So why would you need another 30?
No, I don't need another 30. We will do 30 trees. We're budgeting for use of 30 again. Because I don't know until the trees get resurfaced, because some of them won't be able to be resurfaced. So I've budgeted for an extra few trees to be made from new, just to cover that, because if I'm going out there with 30, I need to have 30 trees at least. So it'll be a total of 30 that I'm aiming at.
So say, for example, you only needed 10, then the other 20 could be used, couldn't they?
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we're not limited. I mean, we picked 30 because it was the first year last year. As I said, I do 60 trees in Gisborne, but I mean, you know, I've done as much as 80 in Gisborne. Again, it's just a cost involved in doing that. But it's also just to turn around. It was a good number to work with. There was enough retailers to take that on board, and it gave good coverage in there. This year we probably will go a little bit further down Alexander Street and maybe some other areas which weren't covered last year. And you know, there are other areas we could cover if they wish. But it's nice to have them in a concentrated area, because visually they look really good. You know, so.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
Cool. All right. Oh, thank you, Fran and Ken. That's was very informative, and it was really great to see how well the trees did. So yeah, no, that's super helpful, and thank you for giving us your time to come and just present to us tonight, because it does help, I reckon, when you're trying to choose.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So
Thank
you. All righty. So you will notice in front of you that you've just been given the confirmation of funds spent for the Te Awamutu football grant. You'll notice in our summary that there was a little cross to say their accountability information hadn't come back. So that's what that is. So Dave, if you would like to jump up in the hot seats, that would be great. So we've got Dave Hall and Dave O'Keefe from the Te Awamutu Association Football Club to discuss their application for some funding for some toilets at Sherwin Park. It should be, I noticed that somewhere in some of the information it says Selwyn Park, but it should be Sherwin Park. Cool. So push the button and it's all yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come along and talk to our submission. So my name is David Hall, and with me is David O'Keefe. We're both committee members, Te Awamutu AFC Football Club. And we're also on the club's facilities subcommittee that looks after our three parks across the stadium, Anchor Park and Sherwin Park next to the Te Awamutu Intermediate. We've been with the club a few years now, and the club has been part of the Te Awamutu fabric since 1913. It was first established. And since about 1980s, we started with a junior club, and currently at the moment we have this year 34 teams of juniors, 6 senior teams. Our junior teams are predominantly based and play and train at Sherwin Park next to the Te Awamutu Intermediate. So with that comes a lot of needs. We've got to cater for 34 teams, plus the visiting teams on games days, etc. So the actual field gets a lot of use, and the facilities get a lot of use. Part of the feedback that we've had from our club members in the past has been about the state of the facilities there. In particular, 2 things that stood out as part of the feedback to us was about the toilets, of having the toilet facilities for people to use at trainings and tournaments and game days, and also about water and availability of water. So the first part of in relation to the toilets we've done was to upgrade the one toilet that was there at the park, and to then build a second toilet to make that available, to fix the electrics and lighting in the toilets, and then to paint everything in that toilet area. It's all secured by doors and gates when it's not in use. So it's a really good cubicle now. The next phase, I guess, of like is making something available for the users when they're there at the park to be able to, one, fill up a water bottle, because we have no facility to do that. There's a small hand basin that's about a 30 centimetre by 30 centimetre square. That's what we have with one tap. We don't have any drinking fountain, which we'd like to have as well, and that's come as part of the quote that we've been given. So if we can have a drinking fountain and a tap to fill water bottles, that's going to be the ultimate sort of part of the facilities, and it'll help with when I say we cater for all the kids and all the teams that come and use that facility. And it's now all year round, because we don't, football traditionally thought of as a winter sport, but not anymore, because we actually run programs through term 1 all the way to term 4, and we use that field all year round, as well as sharing it with cricket, junior cricket and junior softball. So it gets a lot of use there. The building, just to clarify, is actually owned by us. It was originally constructed by the Te Awamutu Rugby sub-union in the early 90s, and then we inherited the lease of the property and the ownership of the building early 90s or mid 90s, and then we've held it ever since. So that's some background to what the actual state of the building is. So we're responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the building, and anything that we can get with regards to help and assistance with finance for that would be greatly appreciated. We are, cost for this project is estimated at approximately $3,500 to do. We would be appreciative of any sort of contribution at all. And the remainder of the funds would come from our own fundraising, subscriptions, donations to finish the project and make it happen. And we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Cool, thank you. So have we got any questions for Dave in regard to what's going on down at Sherwin Park? John?
What are the chances of calling a plumber into, or one of the plumbing firms to sort of help you out in any, labour-wise and putting in some of these facilities? Is that feasible, or have you looked that avenue? It's just I'm just tossing something there for you.
Yep, so Done Right Plumbing have been the company that's helped or worked with us as a major sponsor, and they've also done the plumbing and electric work for the toilet. So they've already contributed quite a bit towards the costs of that. And it's their quote that we're working on for this next sort of phase. We can certainly ask them, but they've already committed quite heavily to us. And so, yeah, we certainly always do ask the question of how much can you sort of help us with? Yeah, absolutely. Mm.
Cool, thanks, John. Anyone else got up? Sally?
Is there any possibility of reusing, repurposing and recycling, with regards to hand basins and things? Has that avenue been thought about?
We'd have to work with the plumbers to be absolutely sure, because the space is kind of constricted as well. So we don't have a lot of space there available, because our thinking is to keep the if you like, the tap and the drinking fountain inside in the cubicle area, which is common space, which then leads to the toilets, because then we can secure it when it's not in use to avoid damage. So that kind of restricts our options with regards to what we can use, but certainly it's something we could give thought to with regards to recycling, but we don't have anything ourselves to reuse anywhere else. But again, conversations we could have with the plumber, absolutely.
Hi there, David. Just a quick question, just to recap, how many people are going to use this facility? Just can you go through that again?
Yep.
And with teams and things?
So we have 34 junior teams who play, if we like, home and away. So on any one weekend, half of them would be at home. So that's 16, 17 teams will be at home, but they'll also have 17 opposition teams at home as well. So we can have over 300 people at the park for a Saturday. And just recently, we had the Fred Amos Cup, which is a primary schools competition there about a week and a bit ago. And we had 32 teams from 13 primary schools there for the entire day. So that game started at 9:30 in the morning and didn't finish till 2:30 in the afternoon. So they were on the park there with their parents and teachers, etc., helping as well. So we do have big events and we have lots of people there all year round.
Thank you.
How many toilets have you got in that block?
Two.
Just two?
Yeah, there used to be one and we've added a second one.
Yeah. Pretty restricted.
It is. And if we're having, for example, the Fred Amos Cup, when we ran that and we knew we had the numbers there, we actually brought in a portaloo as well to complement what we have. So if we have an extra sort of crowd there, then yeah, we'll go to a portaloo option.
Good idea.
Yeah, good.
Fair enough. Keep an eye on what you're doing. All right. Well, Jill, did you have anything that you wanted to ask?
And no, not so much to ask, but it sounds very reasonable request, and I think it's just really interesting. I didn't realise how popular your sport was and how often people are at Sherwin Park. So really great that we've got that in our community. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Jill. All right. Thank you very much. You're very welcome to stay on if you want to stay, but otherwise, it's Neil's turn. So thank you. So next up, we have got Neil Crichton, who is from the Waikato Role Playing Guild. And Neil, you just have to push the button so it goes green and it's all yours. So tell us about what you do. I'm quite intrigued.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the chance to come represent my community. I'm the president of the guild, although I only took over in February. So my understanding of the brief is still catching up to my new role. We are a society of people for tabletop role-playing games. So you may have heard of Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, which is obviously a large part of it, but there's lots and lots of other systems that people may take part in. So we started up back in 2018, just trying to get people into one space where you can meet other people and have a chance to go and form games, because otherwise it's quite difficult to find other people that partake in the hobby. And especially you want to be able to know people before you say invite them around to your house, etc. So part of an element of that is that we decided to stop just being the Hamilton RPG Guild and start actually representing the Waikato RPG. So now we have an event we call Dyson Districts, where we 5 to 6 times a year will go out to the wider, like greater Waikato region and have a sort of one-day event where people from places like Te Awamutu, Huntly, Matamata, Morrinsville, Otarahangi, Toperi, etc. can, if they say never tried the hobby and want to try it, they're welcome to come along and they can try it. It's made for beginners, or just people that do the hobby in those towns and don't want to travel all the way into Hamilton to meet people. It gives them a chance to meet other interested people in their town, and then they could meet up and say start a game on their own. All of the funds that we're asking for will go towards the Kihikihi Dyson Districts. We did also put down the Cambridge board because we were told to combine our submissions, and then Cambridge told us that we actually needed to have separate submissions. So that's why the Cambridge bit is ticked, but we're just looking for money for the Kihikihi. So the $250 that we've requested will go just to the hiring a hall, providing tea and coffee, etc. We do this so that we can keep the on-door charge as minimum as possible, so that more people will feel welcome to come along. Because if we start asking for $40 and you've never tried the hobby before, that's going to be a barrier that's going to put people off. But if it's just like $5 or $10, people are like, yeah, you know what, I'll go try this for a day. It's just $5 or $10. And so for that, we really need to go where community funding is available. Otherwise, we won't be able to afford continually hiring these halls without some support from the councils. We believe our request meets two of the YPA's 4 community outcomes, which is socially resilient and cultural champions. On our proposal, we noted that tabletop role-playing games assist participants in enhancing their problem-solving and negotiation skills, whilst preserving emotional resilience, and we've linked a study in there. These sort of things are being researched at the University of Waikato and at Massey. So at Massey, there's a place called the Grail Labs, where they're doing a lot of study on how tabletop role-playing games can help with neurodivergent people, and just generally getting communities to work together in better ways. And in terms of the cultural champions, it sort of helps with cultural well-being by showcasing talents of Waikato game designers. And also there's quite a diverse cultural background to all of the different games. So for example, one person that's come to the last 4 or 5 Dyson districts, he's of Malaysian and Indian descent. So the game system that he has created from scratch has a lot of Malaysian and Hindi themes to it, which helps move away from that very much Western focused of things like Dungeons and Dragons. And there's also systems for like Native Americans, etc. I know one person's ran that. There's, I don't know if any of you've got kids and have heard of Avatar, the cartoon that was on Nickelodeon. There's a system for that, and that's very much Asian focused in terms of different cultures that it pulls from. So this helps get people familiar with different cultures that might be out there, gives them some exposure to different cultures around the world. And that's kind of it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Neil. That's, yeah, no, it's quite fascinating. It's nice to see something a little bit different, you know, because normally we get the good old bricks and mortar kind of stuff. So hearing from someone that's got something a little bit different is really nice. Anyone got any questions for Neil that they wanted clarified, or Sally?
I'll start. I love games. But I'm interested to know, so you hire a hall and then do you have various games around the room, or is there one thing of Dungeons and Dragons going on, or how does it actually work?
Okay, so it can change from event to event. Usually so at Huntly, which was one of our biggest ones, we had 6 tables running for 3 hours in the morning and 6 tables running for 3 hours in the afternoon session. And so usually there's one person called like the Dungeon Master or Game Master that sits and runs it for the people. So we'd have 6 tables in the hall spread out with these 6 individual games that run for 3 to 4 hours, depending on the system. And we usually, like part of our job as the council for it is to rope people into coming and helping run us. So we'll drag a bunch of people up from Hamilton, or maybe there's someone that lives in the area that wants to try their hand at running a game for people. But usually we bring quite experienced people so that if there's anyone new to the hobby, they get a really good introduction to what the hobby is like.
So it's not a variety of games. You don't have blockers here and Wingspan and this. It's
Oh no, so it's not board games at all.
okay.
It's just tabletop role-playing games. So, you know, I'll have my character that I represent.
Yes.
Let's call it, if we're using Dungeons and Dragons, my human thief beside me might be my wife or whoever, running like a Dragonborn paladin or something like that. And then there's another person that's the game master that, you know, they'll say, oh, you get to an inn and it's quite crowded. What do you want to do? And I'll be like, okay, I go down and sit down and order an ale. And then they'll be like, okay, a bar fight breaks out. And then you go into like combat and you simulate out by using dice as to how you perform in the bar fight. So
I am a little bit familiar, but man, it's like this. I have got a sort of he's a son-in-law that is an MC for D&D. So it's, I got a little bit of an idea, but I'm a board gamer.
I mean, I'm an avid board gamer myself as well. There's a lot of crossover between people that play role-playing games and people that are big fans of board games. Just something nice about sitting around in an evening with 5 or 6 of your friends, having a laugh and just doing something a bit different than sitting, drinking a beer, watching TV.
Yeah.
So where do you propose to have the one in Kihikihi?
It's the 15th of June is when we've got it penciled in for.
It's not too far away.
And who's it going to be?
Kihikihi Town Hall.
Oh, right, yeah. Thank you.
Going, Sally?
What costume do I wear?
You don't have, you can dress up if you want. Certainly, once a year we have a big event called Convergence that's coming up in September, where we usually expect around like 200 people to attend. Like it's an all weekend event. And some people do dress up for that. Not quite what you would see from like Comic-Con and stuff like that in America, but think of it more like Ren Fair, people dress up, that kind of thing.
Cool. No, that sounds fun. All right. So is there any further questions? Otherwise we'll keep going and let Neil carry on. Look, thank you, Neil. Thank you for coming over, because I presume you live in Hamilton, do you?
Yes, that's why I was a little bit late. The traffic was
no,
a
look, no
nightmare.
problem. So thank you very much for making the time to come over and just explain a bit more about what you do. I can't think of anything I've got. So, yeah, no, much appreciated, and we'll let you know in due course.
Cool. Thank you very much for your
Cool.
time.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
All righty. Okie dokie. So that is the public forum. So we will now move on to item 4, which is the confirmation of the minutes from our last meeting on pages 9 to 14. So can we please have someone to move that the Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board confirms the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of March 2024 as circulated with the agenda as a true and correct record of proceedings? John, seconder? Bruce, those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. We will move on to item 5, which is the draft 2024-25 enhanced annual plan consultation. We've got quite a lot here. So just trying to think the best place to start probably in our discussion would be, I'll just bring up our... Melissa's there. Hello, Melissa. Sorry, I didn't realise you were there.
Hello.
Hi.
That's quite all right.
Thanks for joining us. Let's firstly go to Melissa before we start having our discussion. So, Melissa, if there's any bits that you want to point out, I presume we should take it as read, otherwise it's going to take us a long time to get through.
Yeah. And, this is not the first time that you guys have seen this material. We've covered this topic, so I will take the report as read. But just wanted to point out a couple of key parts that might be of interest to you all as the Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board. So I guess some of the key projects or funding aspects that you are likely interested in will be, obviously we're in a pretty financially constrained environment, and a consultation document talks about that at length, and the rationale for that. Because of that, we've had to put a number of our big projects on pause for consideration as part of the 2025 long-term plan. And obviously one of those is Te Arawai. So that's obviously a significant project that was earmarked for a location in Te Awamutu. But yeah, that has been put on pause for consideration through the coming long-term plan, which we have already started planning for that project. So it's already well in train. Another one of those big projects is the Te Awamutu and Pirongia Cycleway. So that one has also been put on pause. Obviously, another one that is very relevant to you all is the reduction in the community board discretionary grant funding. So that's currently sitting at 49,600. That has been reduced to 20,000. So that's everything specifically for the enhanced annual plan, but this report does also cover or make note of consultation on the fees and charges. I won't go over that in detail. I'll just take that as read. I'm not sure if any of that would be of specific interest to any of you, but noting that consultation for the closing date for both consultation processes is this Friday, the 26th of April. And that's probably all from me.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Much appreciated. Has anyone got any questions that they wanted to specifically ask Melissa in regard to the information that we've been given? That if there was anything that you weren't sure about or that you wanted to question just to make sure you've interpreted it correctly? Is there anything from anyone? Jill? Make sure I don't miss you out.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, hi, Melissa. Just a quick question, and it was quite detailed going through it all and what all the things you have had to cut and significantly, and you can sort of see what you were hoping to spend and what you were going to spend. And I guess that can't have been an easy decision. And I guess for all of us, we think, oh, why have you cut this and why not this and why not that? And probably my only big question when I looked at it all, I did have a few, but was unless, so for example, I noticed in a couple of areas where there were parks and there were things being done and it had been reduced. And it's just, say, a general question. If it's not a health and safety thing, why does it still have to be done? Why does that money not go to something else? Or is it because if you put it off altogether, then it's still going to need to be done later on?
Yeah, great question. So obviously we've got, as an organisation, we have many assets out in the community and they need continual maintenance or repairs. So looking at things from a health and safety side of it is one thing, but obviously we've got assets that just need maintaining. So that's what we call a renewal. So I don't know if it's included in there, but if you see something tagged as a renewal, that's sort of talking about renewing the asset, replacing it. I'm actually not sure if maintenance is included in there, but it is all about making sure that we are continuing to deliver the same level of service that we're providing to the community across all of our asset classes. Yeah, so I guess that's probably a point that I do want to make quite clear is through this, we have tried to cut projects where I guess I don't like to use the word discretionary, but they are the more kind of nice to have or projects that we can put off for consideration through the long-term plan without seeing a reduction in the level of service that we provide to the community.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's really good. And so if by some miracle, there is a little bit more money somewhere along the way, the thing like you explained that will be cut down to 20,000, which is just going to be devastating for the community, that we can't help them the same. But there is always the chance that at some stage that will go up again.
So I think all of this will be thrown back into the mix as part of the long-term plan project. So the next long-term plan is 2025. So it needs to be adopted before end of June 2025. So that's just over 12 months away. And we'll be having all of those discussions again through that process.
Yeah.
You're not the only community board, obviously, that has had their funding cut, and wholeheartedly understand that, for yourselves and the community groups that are recipients of this funding, it is quite hard to hear. But yeah, we are in tough, financial times, and ultimately we've really gone for a back to basics budget. And yeah, that's the position that we're holding for the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, has anyone else got any questions? Okay, is it best to receive Melissa's report and then get on to what we want to talk about, and if Melissa can hang about in case there's something that comes up
You could price it in parts, or you can do it all together. It's
Or we
fine.
can just do it at
Yep,
the end.
yep,
We'll
we'll
do
just
it at
work
the
it
end
on,
then.
yeah.
Yep, okay, let's just do it at the end. That makes it easy. I did just have a little question in regard to the Appendix 1. I just wondered, and this is probably a really dumb question to be honest, but there were some things that have been singled out in regard to changes of performance measures and targets. And they just struck me as kind of odd that they were such little things that were in there that they needed to be singled out, like the number of walk-in library visitors per annum and the fact that we're going to, how we measure success. I just kind of thought I just wondered why that is. Melissa, Ken?
Yeah, so do you want me shall I perhaps respond to that, Melissa? And yeah, I'm happy for you to cut in if you want to.
Okay.
But look, that's a great question, Ange, and it does seem a little bit out of context. And I suppose actually that's because actually the enhanced annual plan is a bit out of context. We don't normally do that. So so look, what happens normally is that we do an LTP every 3 years, and the performance framework, i.e. the performance measures and targets, such as the ones you're seeing, are effectively locked in for the full 3 years. Okay, and we don't change those. Come to the enhanced annual plan, and what the enhanced annual plan is all about, and it's particularly that word enhanced, really. It's a little bit different from an ordinary annual plan. An ordinary annual plan would just it wouldn't even actually reference particularly those performance measures and targets. But unfortunately, a requirement of the enhanced annual plan was to actually, pretty much, set out those measures and targets. So that's quite unusual. And I guess we were stuck with having these couple of measures that really weren't making a lot of sense. And rather than just restate them, it was better, as they were. And like I say, they haven't really worked for us for the full 3 years of the LTP so far. Rather than just continue that, it was, I guess, our chance to actually change it up and actually actually change those measures. So so look, it is a bit unusual. That it does seem a little bit disproportionate what we're doing, but look, we were kind of subject to the provisions in the legislation. If that helps.
Yeah, yep. No, as I say, it was just because they sort of seem such little minor things. I'm like, oh, why would there be 3 of these really minor kind of things that popped into here that needed this level of decision to be done? But no, that makes sense. Anyone else have any other questions about anything like that at all? No? Okay, all good. Righto. Shall we move on to our EAP discussion then? Yep, happy to. Right. So we have had a little bit of initial discussion just so that we could, we sort of had some direction for tonight. Otherwise, we might have been all over the place like brown cows. So the things that we've identified that we wanted to discuss and finalise tonight are, first up, that we believe, based on community feedback, that 14.8% is unsustainable and would prefer to see between 10 and 12%. Also, after discussing this with some of our rural ratepayers at the recent Federated Farmers AGM, a nearly 15% increase year on year is not going to be sustainable for them. Some areas that we identified, we would like to see that there could be further cuts in operational expenses, including possible staff consultation reductions. We popped down a significant reduction in project value. There's approximately 7 million, and there needs to be a cut to cloth to make fit. We'd like to see it if there's any possibility of reducing service levels, except for roading, but hold to higher account to make sure we are receiving those levels of service. The other one that fits in there is in regard to debt. So we were very concerned with the high debt level. We can see the sensitivity calculations with the higher interest rates on the possibility of that eventuating. And then we were asking, how could we push back on growth? Could we not defer some growth plans? And we'd just like to note in there that we appreciate what council are trying to do and how hard everyone has worked. So we do acknowledge that, but we still felt that there was room to move there. And we would like to see council actively lobby central government for more support. So, for example, that GST comes back to the councils instead of going to them to help with those big growth things like what you suggested. And I actually wondered about another one which ties in with that, and that was, I was wondering, can there be like a limit on how much growth you can keep going before the people that like the developers have to pay? But is that just related directly to legislation? You've just got to keep going and going, or can we say, right, we're only going to do this much until we've been paid for 50% of what's come in, or might only be 25%, or however the figures crunch out. Actually, is that a doable thing, or is that not a doable thing?
Oh, yeah, look, so through the chair, actually, yeah, probably won't answer that completely specifically tonight. Actually, all of the things that you've raised, I think, are quite legitimate, and you know, I would encourage you to put those in your submission because then we'll get the appropriate staff responses, you know, because obviously staff will advise councillors, and then ultimately those you know, the councillors will make a decision, and of course those staff comments will come back to you. But look, you know, they are all very legitimate concerns. In regard to, you know, can we slow down growth? So we have, as part of putting together the enhanced annual plan, we did look at all of the relevant growth sales, and we did look to actually make some changes there to try to slow them down. But look, the other thing that's very big in the growth space is, of course, national policy statements that require council to actually provide for growth, and that's why I said I won't actually answer it specifically for you right now, because you know, so there's some complexities with that, and I'm probably not the best person to be providing the advice there. You know, somebody like Tony Coots or Wayne Allen would be far better placed than me to respond. But look, there is a real tension between you know, obviously enabling growth, you know, in the way that the government essentially requires us to through those end pieces, and then of course you know, the actual affordability and the you know, the debt that needs to be taken on to enable those assets to go into the ground. So yeah, so look, just returning again to my my statement that they're all really good concerns to you know, to raise. You know, I assume they've come from a discussion within the whole community board. So yeah, by all means, you know, put that submission in, and then of course you know, councillors will consider that, they'll deliberate on that, and you know, ultimately we'll give you an indication in regard to all of those matters.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, it's just sort of making sure that it's a semi-doable thing rather than just rattling off something that's impossible, I suppose. But so are we still comfortable with those things? Do we want to add anything to it? Have I recorded this not quite in a way that that you're comfortable with? Or, I mean, obviously when I do the submission, I'll draft it up, get it out to you, get it back, but we're going to have to be cracking along because it needs to be in by Friday at 5 o'clock.
Friday, yeah.
Yeah, so how much detail did you need in this, Joe? Have you got enough to work with now?
In terms of, I haven't captured them, so we'll have to, once
I
you've
can-
agreed them all, we can like just maybe go through them individually, and then we can make up some principles to put in the recommendation, because it doesn't need to be detailed, but this is about recording in your recommendation that you'll pass the principles on what your submission will be based.
Yep. So I think Andrew's done a pretty good job to sort of capture most of it. I do think one thing to add in is that I think the community board would like to. We think 20 grand is probably a bit too light. We think that.
I wasn't getting. Hang on. Can we just stop?
Yep.
There.
I thought you finished.
Yeah. No. Well, that was the next one. So I just want to make sure that we're happy with that requesting the reduction and the things that relate to that reduction, that we're happy with that.
And so, sorry, just through the chair, if I could just comment, one of those things, and yeah, you know, you're absolutely welcome to, you know, to comment in the way you did and submit in the way that you did. One of the things I noticed very early on that list of items, you were sort of saying, hey, yeah, you know, the 14.8% is too high. You know, I absolutely get that, and I believe that you said you saw a more appropriate range being 10 to 12%, if I heard you correctly.
Yeah, we said prefer.
Yeah. So
preferences.
please forgive me if I got that wrong, but I think you were saying 14.8 was too high. 10 to 12 would certainly be preferable, as you've just mentioned. Then I think it's really important to note, just when you make your submission, that you know, the 14.8% is an average, and it does fall differently according to where the property is located and what type of property it is. So I think you will be able to see, and you'll be able to see in the consultation document, actually I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think most Te Awamutu and Kihikihi residential properties, urban residential properties, I think the rates increase for most of those is much more in the 12 to 13% territory. That's where they're sitting, which is really only just above your preferred range there, or just at the high end of your range. The rural properties, however, and the rural properties are sitting higher, and actually one of the reasons for that is that, you know, our councillors were obviously quite concerned at the 14.8%. You know, nobody wants to you know, set an average rates increase of that level. So where we had opportunity to soften that by using things like water reserves and wastewater reserves, which are actually those rates are only paid you know, by recipients of those services, which are largely the residential properties. We actually use money. In fact, we use $5.5 million. The consultation document's really clear on this. We use $5.5 million out of those water and wastewater reserves to kind of soften the blow on the properties where we could soften that blow, you know, the users of those services. So that's why you do see those urban residential rates, you know, being lower than 14.8%. So yeah, look, I think it's just worthwhile keeping that in mind, and perhaps when you, in terms of the language you use, I'm not sure what you're saying. Are you saying you'd prefer the average of 14.8% to come down to an average of 10 to 12? Because I think you know, use those words average, because you know, our headline number is an average.
Okay, let's see.
That was too fast for me to put in the recommendation.
Do you want me to?
We're going to have to go slow.
Could I cut? It'd be good if I could just go.
Because so it doesn't need to be all of the wording that you've got, so we do need to kind of start.
Okay.
From the top.
Do you want to do that now as we go, or
Well,
would
because
you?
I'm going to get through the behind.
Okay. All right. So we'd like to see an average, that the average of 14.8%
Average of 3.8%.
is comes down to an average of between 10 and 12.
So the average rates increase. 14% comes down to. What was that?
Between 10 and 12, an average of 10 and 12. It's put the average in actually.
Between the average.
Comes down to an average of between.
Between
10 and 12%. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the next one?
So did you want our suggestion to include the suggestions, or don't have to go into that detail, but so then the next one would be the debt. So those were our suggestions
We don't.
around
Oh, that's all of that. That's just, yeah.
this, or do you want to just go to debt?
The cuts. No, I think if you want to say cuts, you should say that.
So staff/consultation, consultant, sorry, staff/consultant reduction.
Yeah. I think we should read this out at the end before you pass it. So recommending further cuts on operational expenses, including staff and consultants. Yeah.
Then, a significant reduction in project value. Oh, I've said that twice. It doesn't make sense.
Reduction project. So
This
you
is
want
Kane's one. Kane, how can I word this a bit better? Because I haven't actually worded this quite right. That we get a reduction in project value. That's
What was
7
that,
million. I haven't
I
quite
saw
got
that
that
there was a
right.
reduction in project value of about 7 million. Well, if that's not the correct number, that's,
That
yeah,
is-
but,
Do I want to say there
so
has
there should be,
been?
there needs, our view was there needs to be a corresponding reduction in
was there
staff and consultation costs for that.
what was the
Oh, so that's
So-
just, don't worry about that because that ties in with the
That's quite
staff
specific.
consultant reduction.
okay,
Yeah,
'cause I was
maybe
thinking
say-
which project?
So
Maybe say
e.g.,
reduction in project value, therefore we would see a reduction in,
hang on, I need to
we
fix
would
this
expect to
because
see
I
a
didn't
corresponding
think I had
reduction in
this
staff
quite
and
right.
consultation costs.
Oh.
Reduction.
So recommending further cuts on operational expenses. With reduction in project costs. Expect to see a corresponding
Mm.
reduction. Yeah.
Reducing service levels except for roading. And hold to a higher account to make sure that we are still receiving the levels, required levels of service. We're very concerned with the high debt level. And have requested sensitivity calculations with higher interest rates on the possibility of that eventuating. That's meant to be that.
Sensitivity testing
Yeah. Calculations, sensitivity calculations.
on relation to project levels.
Yeah.
Sensitivity testing in relation to debt levels.
Actually would be better there.
Oh, see, interest rates, yeah,
And that fits in there.
yeah. Pushing back on growth.
Yep. Can we not defer some growth plans and, or could we, or collect more revenue before we go ahead? Because I was just so mindful, Ken, when you said the other day about, like putting all the pipes and all the infrastructure, but the developers don't pay, but we've got to pay for it. And the ratepayers get to carry the can basically until, and then when you hear people start saying that like Davies have laid off 22 guys and Core Steel have laid off 16, it's not coming anytime soon.
Yeah.
If they're laying off those sorts of, and that was only a couple, the person I was
Yes.
talking to rattled off about half a dozen.
Yes,
It's like,
yeah,
"Whoa."
yes. So look through you as chair. So it's not so much that the ratepayers are paying; the developers do always pay,
In the
but
end,
often there's a timing
Yeah,
delay.
that's what I mean, that
And
we're paying for
yes.
that though, aren't we? The interest in between.
No,
waiting.
we're not, because that's actually accumulating into the debt that the developers also
okay.
pay. So
Okay.
so no, we're not. So
Thanks
it
for
is
clarifying that.
paid by the developers. Yeah.
Okay. Right. That probably doesn't need to be in the minutes. Oh,
No, yeah.
but we would like to see council actively lobby central government for more support. Maybe in conjunction with other councils, because then you've got more people on side. Righto, that's caught us up, I think.
Yeah.
Righto. So, okay. So if everybody's happy with the ones that relate to the rates and that part of it, our next one was that we've requested to recrease the Te Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board funding up to 40,000. We feel we need this to lead community projects and support our local community initiatives. We've popped in that we are always oversubscribed, and generally this is approximately 3 times what we have to give out. We currently have approximately $8,000 in the discretionary fund, and 16 local worthy applicants are asking for 36,000. I also had a quick check at the one before, and we'd had 29 applicants for $55,000. So we're pretty much, you know, and they're local organisations that are doing fabulous things for our communities. That can we actually afford to be without those things? Can our communities' well-being afford to be without those things? So with the proposed reduction, we will possibly start to see less community organisations doing the amazing work that they do on a shoestring budget. So is everybody still in agreement that we at least ask? Don't ask, you don't get. Yeah. And is there anything in addition that you think we should pop in there to support why we think we should still be able to get that funding?
Yeah, so one of the things I thought was the town cleanup day that took, I think it was less than $200, and we had 25 people doing about, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours work. So it ends up being like $3 an hour, and all organisation costs covered. So there's pretty good value for money in terms of what we can do. I don't know how we want to write that up, but maybe we can put that in the more detailed aspect of it.
Okay, yep, cool. Just gonna do an EG. Probably don't need that part, but so is that all right?
Yeah,
What you've
that's
got?
enough for the recommendation.
Okay,
but
cool,
that-
just the
yeah, to
request.
go up to 40.
Okay, so we have some projects that we would like to lead and get services involved to assist if we can get permission to do so. So these are moving the perfume garden in the Te Awamutu War Memorial Park along a little to enable better access to the pathway for the returned servicemen, and just to make it look better. To provide some adult fitness equipment. Jill, I've popped this in here. At a couple of the parks, I've said funding is already available for this at no cost to ratepayers or council. Cleaning up the lake in Te Awamutu War Memorial Park to improve the water quality until such times that funds become available to complete the upgrades. To re-establish the gravelled walkway between Eileen Monteforte and Fonterra along the edge of Te Awamutu College rugby fields and Te Wānanga o Aotearoa. Provide some furniture, trees and fix the gate at the new dog park in Pikaro Park. So those were some things we were quite keen to get permission from council to be able to at least explore and possibly get those done as little community board projects. So is everybody still happy for those?
Yeah.
Yep. So did you want to list each of those or?
Yeah, I just need to
Yep.
get the walkway one. Where's that?
Between Eileen Monteforte and, so it runs along here. We didn't need to have all this, I could just email this to you.
Yeah, because I think it's good to have it in the recommendations. I just need it not in the same level of detail, but.
And then my last one was the dog park. I'm hungry. I thought my sausage and peanut butter sandwich would have done it. Yep,
Yeah.
Okay. Eyesight, so we popped down that we would like to support Destination Te Awamutu in their request for $70,000. I've spoken to them today. They are going to send us a copy of their submission. So I'm not quite sure how we deal with that at this point in time because we really need to read it. They've only just finished it. That's one from the eyesight and from the chamber. So we need to be able to have some flexibility here to be able to give board members the opportunity to see those and just decide whether we want to support their submissions in their entirety or just parts of their submissions. But just to give you a bit of a heads up, I spoke to Steve Tritt, who's helped them do their submissions, and to Maria, who's the chair of the Chamber of Commerce. And by and large, they are on the same page as us. So in regard to the Chamber of Commerce, they are looking at things like requesting better levels of communication with council. They would like to see the big projects be scaled back as they believe they're too big and too expensive. They were keen to support the water tower. However, they believe it should be targeted rates and fundraising in Cambridge as opposed to it being a district-wide cost. So those were the main things. They also mentioned that they would like to see some of the money that's tied up in growth actually come back to the community as a way of keeping that money in the community as opposed to it being all tied up in growth. But that document is hopefully not too far. I did check just before I came and I didn't see it there, but Steve said he was getting it through. And the main thrust from the Destination Te Awamutu were things like it's the go-to place for events and activities. They're seeing 60 to 70% of the people using the eyesight is actually locals, which I commented is actually really good. That, you know, because as ratepayers, we're paying for it, that number of people are taking their visitors or using the eyesight to organise their own trips or find out information and using that facility. It's a key node in Selwyn Park in regard to security as a drop-in place for tourists and locals. It's a community organisation that was started by the community for the community. And they are asking if they could get 70,000 for the next year, and ideally they would like to see that in the following year as well, and be able to have continued use of the premises where they are there at the virtual pavilion as well. So that's the gist of what they're asking. But like I say, it probably would be prudent that we actually read their submission before we make a call on exactly what we are or aren't supporting. But how do you feel about what I've outlined as a base to maybe put into how we're going to do this, Joe?
I've got support and version enhancing and asset planning, which might also include supporting asset submission to be enhanced.
Oh, yeah, so we can do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
We'll read all this out at the end.
Yep, okay,
But I
that
think
sounds right.
kind of covers
So
the gist of-
just, okay, thank you. But so is there any, you know, like any standouts there or anything that people are concerned with or don't think we should be or? Yep. Righto, what did we say here? Realistically, the affordability of the Becker plans for the land in and around Selwyn Park is not something our ratepayers will support. Our understanding is it far exceeds what we propose to be spent upgrading the home's garage. An example are the glass shelters over the seats shown in their concept drawings, which are $200,000 each. In addition, the land here was originally gifted by mana whenua to the church, and it was taken by the government following the land wars. They are not supportive of council-owned land to be privatised again, as outlined in the letter from Bishop Richardson that Community Board presented with their Homes Garage proposal last year. We would like to see the Homes Garage concept supported as an affordable option that provides a usable amenity for Te Awamutu, that we investigate further opportunities to fund it, including external funding. So was just a little bit of background to go with our thing, but basically I think the gist is that we would like to see the Homes Garage considered as a project for the LTP in brief. Does that? But to make sure that we do get the chance, because what ends up happening is we so often bring things to the table and they sort of get parked, and then the next LTP comes around and we've missed the boat again. Yep. Okay. Yep. And do you want me to put the background stuff there or not put quite? In the submission one. Yep. Sweet. Cool. So, project, pardon? Oh, no, you don't need to do all the Becca, but that's all the background stuff.
You just wish to see the Homes project as part of it? Yep. I'll start from there.
Yep. So that we have the opportunity for it to become a project in the LTP by it being acknowledged at this point. I don't know how you say that.
Yep. That's up for here.
Yep. Okay. The next one we've got, actually I might just move the Cambridge Tower to the second one because it's got its own thing, eh? It's got its own, in the submission, it's got its own bit about the Cambridge Tower.
We can still just include it in this list.
Okay, I was just going to keep the Te Awamutu stuff together.
Oh.
I'll just, yeah. So the next one we've got is to create a footpath marked walkway in the George Street car park, which has been something that has been asked for. I think we are now the 4th community board. So it started with Richard Hurrell and Colin Pinkerton, who's now gone. And I suppose Bernard Westerbarn was back there and Dean Taylor. So it's been floating around for a long, long time. So what we said was that we'd like to see that footpath happen outside McDonald's through to the pedestrian crossing by the toilets and link the crossing with a footpath to the shops on the daycare side of the car park. It could be done in sections, so not to be a big expense in one hit. So section 1, this annual plan, and section 2 in the next. Is there anything else that relates to Te Awamutu that we feel is important for us to be raising with this annual plan? Or we're pretty comfortable with where we're sitting on that? Yep, okay, cool. So that's Te Awamutu. In regard to the Cambridge Tower, we acknowledged its historical significance and it is important to preserve the tower if possible. However, we've come up with a slightly different idea, compliments of Councillor Brown, and that we believe that either of the options proposed are extremely expensive, and so we recommend taking the tank off the top to reduce the weight, especially when it rains, and then fence it off to prevent people climbing on it and leave it be, if that is a feasible thing to be able to do, as long as taking the tower off means that it can't fall on the rest home. The rest home, yeah, it's there before anyone. Could we go down a rabbit warren trying to find out who gave permission to put it beside quite so close to the rest home?
Sorry. So through the chair, the tower was there before the rest home.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to be clear.
No. What I mean, sorry, is what I'm meaning is who gave permission for the rest home boundary to be quite so close to the tower,
right,
not that the tower, not the other way around. Yeah.
Yep, no, that's fine. Hey, yeah, through the chair, just a further comment on what you've just suggested as well. So, so look, we were working through a process to remove the tank off the tower. That was actually going to be like a bit of a stage one. But yeah, look, it turned out that when we tendered, when we put out a tender request for that work, it turned out that the actual cost of removing the tank off the tower was actually going to be significantly more than what was estimated. So that was looked at as an option. In fact, it was an option that was being very actively pursued just in the last 6 to 12 months, but was abandoned due to the cost. And I also believe that that doing that just on its own is not sufficient to to address this issue. So yes, it will reduce the weight involved, but it won't fix the issue. There will still be a need if the tower is to be retained for some form of earthquake strengthening, whether that tank is on the top or not. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I did have one additional question, and that was, why is the tower costing so much to strengthen? So and I know it's not apples with apples, but the building over here, the annex and the museum, is going to cost 4.9 million to 4.9, 5.9? 5.9, thank you. 5.9 million to reinforce that. And you've got to do walls and roof, and it's going to have people in it working every day, and museum, tourists, visitors. The tower isn't going to have anyone live in it or work in it or climb on it, is it? So why is it costing $6 million?
Oh, look, Chair, look, with the greatest respect, the nature of the two buildings or the two structures is entirely different. I mean, over the road here, it's a single story, office administration building. In Cambridge, you're talking about a tower, a tall, skinny tower. So look, I'm no engineer, but the things are totally different. In both cases, those numbers have been informed by estimates.
It's just sort of like
estimates, structural engineering, etc. Yeah, so
I suppose it's more around the fact that one is just going to be aesthetic,
correct.
And the other one actually is a health and safety issue.
Yes, yeah. Oh, you're absolutely correct on
And
that.
it's just
one will be well and truly occupied. The other, the other won't be. But like I say, inherently they're quite different nature.
Oh, absolutely,
nature
they are
buildings,
different. But I just wondered if what it is about it.
Yeah, and in fact, this actually makes it worse in regard to the argument you're making. But the 5.9 million over the road is not just earthquake strengthening. That's actually some improvement works as well, and in terms of a new roof, which is required as well as the seismic strengthening. So so which makes the divergence of costs even greater.
Right, I did just think of something though. So in light of what Ken said in regard to taking the tank off, maybe do we want to do a detour on that, seeing as it's clearly cost prohibitive from the sounds of things, seeing as we've learnt that information. And I had mentioned earlier that the Chamber was saying targeted rate and fundraising. Shall we say that we'd like to see the Cambridge community do what's best for them with a targeted rate and fundraising? Does that sound like a plan? Okay, let's go with that then. So we would like to see the Cambridge community do what's best, should they choose to do either option. They can get it out of a targeted rate and fundraising. It does have significant value. I mean, you don't miss it, do you? I know exactly where that is. There'd be loads of things probably in Cambridge that I couldn't say where it is, but if you said to me, where's their tower? I'd go, oh, you go up towards Hamilton and it's over there on the left-hand side. It does really stand out and is quite a neat old tower. All right, so are we happy with that? Okay,
We just don't pay for it.
no. No one does. Ah,
Their tower.
righto, Joe, do you want to read all that?
Well, I'll just read, so you've got the A and.
Excuse me, can we just give Joe the floor to go through this to make sure everybody's happy? Because once we say aye, we're in.
And we'll just do, if we just do A as it stands in your report, and I'll just go through B now and C, because then you'll move on to D, which is your fees and charges, but just so you're clear on B while we've finished talking about it. So recommendation B becomes makes a submission to the draft 2024/25 enhanced annual plan before the 26th of April 2024, which shall include the following points. First point is the average rates increase of 14% comes down to an average of between 10% and 12%. Recommending further cuts on operational expenses. With reduction in projects, we expect to see a corresponding reduction in staff and consultant costs. I got that right?
Yep. Sound right?
Reducing service levels except for roading and hold to a higher account to ensure that we're still receiving the required levels of service. Next one, concern with high debt level and highlight the need for further sensitivity testing in relation to interest rates. This is kind of raises a question, can we defer growth plans, or we collect more, or can we collect more revenue before further growth proceeds? Council lobbying central government for more support in conjunction with other councils. Request for an increase to the discretionary request for an increase to the community board discretionary funding. Was it of up to 40,000 or of 40,000? Of 40,000. Yeah. Permission to explore and potentially lead the following projects: moving perfume garden at Memorial Park, installing fitness equipment in local parks, cleaning up the lake in Memorial Park, establish a gravelled walkway between Eileen, Montefiore and Fonterra along the edge of the Tiamutu College rugby fields in Te Wānanga o Aotearoa, installation of furniture and trees and the fixing of a gate at Pekarau Park. Support, next one is support inclusion in the enhanced annual plan of eyesight funding, which may also include supporting the eyesight submission to the enhanced annual plan once board members have had an opportunity to review the submission. All right with that. Advocate for inclusion of the Homes Garage project as a project for the next long-term plan. Request a marked footpath in the George Street car park for consideration as part of the long-term plan. So I've got that long-term plan, not annual plan, eh? Yep. And support the Cambridge community to do what is best for them with the Cambridge Water Tower, but believe this should be funded by a targeted rate in fundraising. Everyone happy with all those?
Do you need to include that's for Cambridge residents, the targeted rate?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Joe?
Good spotting,
And
Sally.
so that should be, but believe this should be funded by a targeted rate for Cambridge residents in fundraising. And so then there's also a new C, which will be delegates authority to the chair of the Tiamutu and Community Board, Ange Holt, to finalise the Community Board submission to the draft 2024/25 annual plan in consultation with the Community Board members and ensure our submission is received by council by 5 p.m. Friday, the 26th of April 2024.
You're lucky we've got the day off tomorrow, so I can do it.
So that's all.
My thoughts with that is that cluster of the perfume garden and the bits and things that we would like to see done, but we would like to see community funding, or, you know, all we're asking for is the permission to do those things and get the community behind to do it. Is that
Yeah.
So my thought is that that's asking for the request, but it's not to do with the enhanced annual plan as per se, but it could go at the bottom. So because at the moment you've tucked it in a cluster, and then we go back to the enhanced annual plan of relevant points.
I suppose these are just a group of things that you want to include in your submission.
Okay.
And as chair can put them in whatever order she wants and kind of finesse
So
the wording, however.
comes as part of that, you know, like we wouldn't be using all of the 40,000 for that. I don't mean that at all, but it sort of ties in with that community wellbeing and doing things for the community.
Yeah, and you'll, you know, flesh out some of the detail,
Yeah.
won't you, when you do your submission?
Yeah,
Right.
and you'll see that.
Oh,
Oh, Jill, thanks, John. You need to put your microphone on, Chicky.
Bring this up.
No, you're still not. What's going on?
She's on mute. She's got her mute button on.
You have got your mute button on by the looks. It's showing up on beside your name. Do you want to write on a piece of paper? Zoe, is there anything you can do to help? All right, Jill, keep pushing buttons and we'll come back to you. Yeah, I haven't learnt, what do you call it? To read lips, so I can't interpret for you, I'm sorry.
Sign.
Yeah, or sign, probably should have learnt that. All right, sorry, Jill. I don't quite know. It definitely is, isn't it?
On your bottom of the screen, Jill.
Yeah, but that's not where you turn it on and off. All right, let's keep going because that'll take us too long. Okay, let's move on to the fees and charges. So, are there any questions for Melissa in regard to those? Seeing she's kindly sat in and waited with us, or for Ken about fees and charges?
What happens
Sally?
with just urban and rural water charges? Because they're not included in the charges, just your standard water fees.
So they are rates, and actually, when you look at those indicator properties, there's actually an estimate made for the amount of what those water rates would be, based on the volumes used in previous years, and multiplied out by the new rate that we're looking to set. So we have set the rates. And like I say, they do come through in those indicator properties. You can certainly see them coming through there.
Sorry, just getting back. So we need to be looking on page Appendix 5, draft schedule of fees and charges. So let's see. Righto, so we haven't discussed this prior to now. So are there any comments, feedback that you would like to provide in regard to fees and charges, or are we happy to support it as is? Is there anything that you thought was too expensive or had any feedback on that people have pushed back on, or are we quite happy with where staff have recommended these are in regard to basically being a user paid type of?
I was concerned about the burial fee, and I think that I can't find the comment, but the comment was that it's increased in order to, I think, influence or I can't remember the words, but it was to encourage
people to be cremated.
That's the one. And I think that's sort of quite culturally insensitive, really. I think that is a barrier, and I think, it's a time when it's such a tragedy in people's lives that to have a huge cost like that just, it's a great money maker. it'd be nice to see it reduced.
Okay, how does everybody else feel about that?
Yeah,
Jill,
actually,
can you do a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
I'm
Oh.
talking now.
Oh, you are too?
Well, my thumb didn't work, but Alan's did, so we're right now. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So my understanding is we're starting to run out of room, which is probably part of the reason why an increase in fees, good old supply and demand, is starting to kick in. I just can't find where it said about it. But is it 10%, which is what was
20.
20? So Ken, do you know why?
135 is
Why
where
it
it
was?
So sorry, through the chair, this is the cemetery fees still. I think that that Sally summed it up in terms of the what you intimated there. What's the thinking, and that is described in the fees and charges policy. Some encouragement to potentially push people towards cremation. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's stated on page 135, cemetery fees. Fees remain the same for ashes, but increase for casket burials to incentivise interment of ashes. And that could be deemed sort of quite culturally insensitive, I think.
There is an issue with that, definitely. All right, need a bit of an idea, indication as to what you guys want to do. Do you want to support Sally with that and maybe just see it come back to only being a smaller increase, or?
Yeah, I support that. Support what Sally's saying.
Yep. Bruce and John, are you kind of?
He's abstaining.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you do. John? To support it. Jill?
I just had a quick question that Ken might be able to help with. A little while ago, they talked about buying some more land off one of the farmers behind the cemetery.
Jill, sorry. Sorry, can I just stop you quickly? Can we just get the decision on this aerial thing and then ask your question? Otherwise, we don't finish stuff. Thank you. So were you in support of Sally's comment that it's a little bit insensitive and quite a big increase?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Righto. So we're going to say that we prefer that it was a little bit less, and on the fact that it's just culturally insensitive. Yep. Okay. Cool. Right. Jill, go.
Oh, sorry. A little while ago, they talked about one of the farmers behind the cemetery was happy to sell a little bit of land to the council to provide area for more graves. So I'm not quite sure what happened with that.
Oh, look through the chair. Look, I don't actually have any knowledge or understanding of that. So I'm sorry, Jill. That would be much more in Sally and Brad's area. Yeah. I'm not quite sure of the detail of that.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, let's go back to the fees and charges then.
Okay.
Because that's not fees and charges. So is there anything else? I mean,
what's the after hours fee back on cemetery fees, but what does the after hours extra fees refer to? Like, why do you pay an after hour fee after 2 p.m. on a Monday to Friday? I would have thought 5 p.m. would be the cut-off. I don't understand that.
Oh, so look, I can probably assist a little bit with this, and I think this is actually common, with a lot of councils across the country. So obviously we employ sextants to to work in the cemeteries, and obviously after after an interment is done, the sextants have to do obviously a considerable amount of work to to fill in the grave, etc. I'm pretty sure that 2 p.m. kind of is a cut-off to enable them to do that work in an appropriate length of time. Like they're not walking out the cemetery at 2 o'clock. They're staying on and doing whatever work needs to be done. But I suppose they can't be there till 7, 8 o'clock at night or whatever. So there needs to be a line somewhere. And for whatever reason, and I'm not entirely sure of the details, but that is 2 p.m. So so you have your funeral service. The casket is brought to the cemetery. You kind of need to be there at before 2 o'clock or whatever the appropriate cutoff is to do whatever you need to do there, which enables the sextants to obviously do what they need to do. And it looks like maybe there's some sort of penalty fee or whatever. If you're not within those timeframes. So and like I say, I know that's quite common. Right throughout the country, because I've unfortunately, sadly, I've had some recent experience with cemeteries and a couple of other council areas, quite some distance from here, where and I'm not sure it's always 2 o'clock, but there is definitely an early afternoon time.
So another question, is that negotiated or is that liaised with the funeral directors and things in town? Because I don't have any familiarity with this at all.
So look, it would be a council policy decision that obviously the funeral directors would need to comply with. But it's essentially that in regard to the employment engagement of our sextants. There needs to be an appropriate time set, and then that's quite clearly articulated as it appears to be in this policy here, and those are the rules. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but look any further info again. That's it's very much in Sally and Brad territory if the board is looking for further info on that.
Cool. All right, well, if there's nothing more around the fees and charges, do we want to say something along the lines of that, that we by and large support the fees and charges as presented? However, we have one item that we would like to see amended, and that's that the burial fee is actually reduced, because we believe that potentially is culturally insensitive to be making people pay extra.
Maybe at the start, say maybe somewhere on balance.
On balance, that's what I want. On balance, that's a better way of putting it.
Nothing really stood out to
you. I start to glaze over, to be honest, when I'm. Pardon? That was good spotting, Sally. Right, Joe, how are we doing this?
Sorry.
So on balance, that we support the fees and charges.
As presented, but would like to see the burial fees reduced.
Yes, please.
Then we've.
Do we need to say why? I'll put that in the submission, yes, of course.
So then the UD will say makes a submission to the draft 2024/25 fees and charges before 26th April 2024, which shall include the following. Oh, it's actually the following points, which is really on balance, support fees and charges as presented, but would like to see the burial fees reduced. And then you end up with a further recommendation E, which is delegates authority to the chair of the Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board and Holt to finalise the Community Board submission to the draft 2024/25 fees and charges in consultation with the Community Board members, and ensure our submission is received by council by 5 p.m. Friday the 26th of April 2024.
Cool. So we're all happy with all of those? All righty. So I can just do that?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, can I please have someone move points? Firstly, receive Melissa's report, don't forget that, and then receive the points that we've just made. Bruce can't. Do you want to be recorded that you're not?
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll just get,
Cool, but we just need someone to please move it. Jill's waving. We'll give it to Jill. Second? Kane? All in favour? Against? Carried. And councillor Thomas would like to be recorded as abstaining. Thanks, Bruce.
Can I just ask a question? It's not pertaining, it's to do with, at the end of the consultation period, staff will collect and analyse submissions from the work. Staff will produce a submissions and analysis report for elected members that identifies key themes from feedback received. When are we expected to receive that, Melissa? Or
Yeah.
I'm just interested.
So we've got a few things to go before we get to that point yet. So the hearing for the enhanced annual plan and fees and charges was on the 20th of May. So after that, we'll do a degree of analysis leading up to that, but the majority of it will come after for the deliberations, which I believe is on the 4th of June. For council. So all of the analysis will form part of the report for that meeting.
And are you going to speak to our submission as the other thing on either the 20th or the 21st?
Probably should.
I think so.
Yep.
So can I move a motion that you're going to speak to our submission on the 20th and 21st?
No, you don't.
I don't need to. I don't think. Just need to let them know in the box. All right. Cool. No, good point. All right. Let's move on to item 6 then, which, thank you, Melissa. Just about forgot you. Sorry. Thank you so much for sitting in with us. You can go and put your feet up and have a glass of wine and enjoy your evening, hopefully. I hope you're not at work still. That's the main thing.
Thank you all. But yeah.
Okay. See ya. Right, so on to item 6, the Treasury report, which is on pages 141 to 143. I'll move that the Te Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board receives a report of Nada Milne, Financial Accountant, titled Treasury Report for the period ended 31st of March 2024. Can I have someone second that, please? John, all in favour? Against? Carried. Is there any discussion in relation to our Treasury report, other than we haven't got much money to then give out? Stating the obvious.
Yeah, the clean-up day, I think, was, I'm trying to find it now, but I think the cost was just under $200. That's going to come through next month, so that's pretty good value for what we did, I think.
Yeah, how many kilos was it? 100 kilos of rubbish for $200. That's probably pretty good. All right, is there anything else in regard to that? If not, we shall move on. Right, item 7, funding for the battery recycling on pages 144 to 145. So I can speak to that, seeing as Lou's not here. So basically, in a nutshell, I think it's pretty clear what's been written in the report. Basically, Pack and Save, the manager from Pack, or the owner of Pack and Save, Jeremy Bennett, has very kindly offered to provide $2,000 to go towards paying for the battery recycling. So we just need to accept that we're happy to take his money. Is pretty much it in a nutshell. I did just want to double check that with the motion, do we need to say that that money is to be used to pay for the recycling of the batteries? Because I would hate for it to be.
So I think that's why we drafted it. So you accept the offer of $2,000 plus GST, and once that you agree to, once that money comes in, to your discretion to allocate this funding once received in its discretionary funds to Project Battery.
Yeah, but instead of just allocating it to Project Battery, that it's the purpose of the funds is to pay for the battery.
We could just add for battery recycling on the end of B.
Yeah, so that it's not just sat there and ends up being used to do advertising
Or
or
signs, okay, yeah.
signs or stuff like that. He's given it to us to help us pay for the recycling of the batteries. Yeah, so just not quite sure where you tick
Yeah,
that word in.
So we've just, so B now has accepted the offer of funding of $2,000 plus GST from the Te Awamutu Pack and Save and agrees to allocate this funding once received in its discretionary funds to Project Battery for battery recycling.
Oh, perfect. Yep, for battery recycling. And just a tiny little typo, Pack and Save doesn't have a C in it.
Right, cool.
All right, so does anyone have any questions about that?
Thank you.
No, cool. All right, I shall then move that the Te Awamutu-Kihikihi Community Board A receive the report of Joe Greed, Manager of Governance, titled Funding for Project Battery, and B accepts the offer of funding of $2,000 plus GST from Te Awamutu Pack and Save and agrees to allocate this funding once received in its discretionary funds to Project Battery for battery recycling. I've moved it. Sally seconded it. All in favour? Carried. Against? No, against carried. I got a bit tongue-tied there. I always do at least once a meeting. Right, done.
Is Lou still going to be
He's still picking up the batteries and stuff. Yep. And I will do I've sent Jeremy just actually, so you know, I've just sent him an email giving him the old proposal just so he could see what we had agreed previously, the health and safety around handling the batteries. Not that they really do much of that side of it. Lou does, picks them up, or I will. And then now that we've moved this motion, I will now update the proposal and send that to him with the new proposal for the funding. So I'll get that off to him next week, next week. All right. Okay, so we must be moving into the discretionary fund, item 9. So do we need to discuss any of the financials for the applications, or is everybody happy and it's self-explanatory with what's in there? There's nothing that you feel you need to have a public excluded discussion about regarding the financials? No?
Do you want to have do you want to keep a buffer for us from out of that discretionary fund?
Yes, that's going to be the next thing once we've decided whether we need to go public excluded or not. If we don't, we have a total of how much?
$8,439.61.
There's also the 800.
Hold on.
There's also the 800 from the town cleanup day, but that might be used for the following. So the question there is, if there's another cleanup day, does that need to be passed, or is that?
We'll need to pass it. Then I suppose we'll need to return the amount to uncommitted once we've got all those costs have come through in your treasury report. So
I'm just saying there's an extra $800 there.
To allow?
So we've already, it's already sort of put aside on
There's a
top of the
buffer.
$8,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you want to work out, we want to have at the end.
Okay, so
Plus the 2,000 at the parish.
well, we've got to be a bit careful with that, don't we?
How
Okay,
much
so
parish we want to keep aside.
how much have we got any ideas? We have only got how long until July when we will get our,
well, April now, so you've only got 2
so
more.
2 months, so April and June, and then we don't have a meeting in July. So, well, absolutely, there's probably a high chance of that.
When are you looking at doing another cleanup? September. So into the next year anyway.
Yeah, but other things as well.
Yeah.
Cost, I think. So probably not a huge amount of them, fortunately.
No, I can't think of anything that I can think of that we've planned that we need any money for between now and when the next lot comes in? And Ken, can I just check with you, when the money that's proposed for community boards and for the Premier Committee, Ward Committee, are we to use that like a discretionary fund, or is that just $20,000 that the community board will be able to use for their own projects? We won't do a discretionary fund anymore.
Yeah, I do.
Or Joe, do you?
Well,
can
just
you
in
answer
terms
that?
of, I'll just share with you what Premier Ward Committee they put as part of their recommendation to submit on the enhanced annual plan. That was in terms of the funding that they were going to be given. They wanted to include as that part of their submission a statement to say to council that they wanted to be able to retain the ability to use the funding that they were given either for their own projects or for some form of grants to community organisations. So they actually, included it as part of their recommendation to tell council that actually they wanted to, retain that flexibility, because unless you tell the councillors, they won't know that.
Yeah.
And they might look at it and go, oh, well, that's 20,000, that's just for projects. But whereas if, you might, there might be different things, whether it's part of a discretionary round or whether part of it's part of a different system, there might be some, you might want to say that you want to retain the ability to.
I just took that as an assumption, but can we still say that without having to have included that in those points?
Well, I mean, you had the.
We've said the 40 and but we haven't been very specific with that, but.
So Angie may choose, or the board may choose to not have discretionary grants as such because of the administrator. That's what the Premier Ward decided.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
they only get 10 grand in the future. What's the point? It's a lot of work for staff.
Yeah.
And yet the community could come, and this board, they could do the same thing if they wanted, just come when they wanted to submit.
To make an application.
As it went through the year.
Yeah.
But,
They didn't want council to look at it and think that it was under projects. And so
Yeah.
they limited them to projects.
Right,
Because
okay.
they had groups in the community that they wanted to be able to.
Yeah.
fund.
Support as well, yeah.
But it's
But
just
maybe
whether we
say
have to include it in that other bit
40,000
or
on
not.
the same basis as
Right,
currently.
yes.
Because I just wasn't sure, we haven't actually officially been, told that, we know because it was a thing made at a meeting, but we haven't actually,
Yeah. well, that's-
really in anything been given a report or anything to say, this is what's happening and this is what we think it's going to look like.
I suppose the thing is, like, your current delegation gives you the ability to spend the money you currently get on your projects or as part of a discretionary grant. So I suppose you know in your submission you're wanting to increase it to 40,000 on the same basis as currently, which gives you the flexibility.
Yeah, because it would be good to still be able to help some community organisations out, if they had a specific
You would just
thing, but it might
but-
not be advertised as a discretionary fund as such. It'd be just that if people came to us, we could.
I think, yeah, if there's a reduction in funding, I think we'll get everyone together and kind of figure out
How.
what the process is going to be going forward that kind of,
Okay.
works for people.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So anyway, then that brings us back. Sorry, we got a bit sidetracked there. That brings us back to how much do we want to just leave in the coffers until July, when we will get our new funding.
Just leave the 800 from the stuff.
Yep.
Just keep the house with everything else.
Okay. Is everybody happy with that? So we'll just leave it $800.
Just clean out whole, whatever we've got.
You've got to give it to them.
Okay. Jill, got any comments? $800 left in the bank account?
If that's the way it works, I've actually only allocated 4,500 out of this slot. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm pleased, I'm pleased I'm not on the receiving end.
I mean, it's been recognised.
All right, okay, so we're quite happy, we don't need to go out of public excluded, so let's get into this then.
Probably should go public
Have
excluded.
you
just
got
for-
some
yeah,
financial, so remember, if we go public excluded, this is just purely to talk about the organisation's financials, okay?
Yeah, okay.
This
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
all the other stuff,
No.
it's just if you've got some queries around their financial position.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, all right, can we please go public excluded? So can I please move, no, can I have someone please move that the public be excluded from the following parts of this meeting? Yes, it's very long. As per the recommendation that's shown here, can we show that on the camera?
No, I think you should read it.
Oh, it's in the agenda at item 9.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
It's your item 9 recommendation.
so it's, thank you, Joe, it's our item 9 recommendation. Basically, in a nutshell, it says that all of the information that we're going to discuss in our meeting will be kept confidential. And it's just basically the reason that we're going to do this is to keep those organisations' financial position confidential. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. So, can someone move that we, Kane, seconder, Jill, all in favour? Against?